terms of a peace deal. Now, this comes as US officials are in Abu Dhabi today for meetings with their Russian counterparts. The details of what the US and Ukraine have agreed are unclear, but we do know what the sticking points were. President Trump's 28-point peace plan demanded that Ukraine give up swaths of its territory to Russia, cut the size of its army, and agree to be barred from joining NATO, the US-led alliance that could protect it from future attack. More than 3 years after Vladimir Putin launched his invasion, the Trump plan seemed to mirror many of Russia's demands. Last night, around 400 miles from the front line in Kyiv, Russia again hit an apartment building, killing at least 6. We don't believe in the peace plan, said this survivor. Putin won't stop until he finishes us off. Ukraine's wartime president, Volodymyr Zelensky, initially responded to the Trump plan by saying it could mean the loss either of Ukraine's dignity or of its partnership with the US. But last night, Zelensky was more upbeat, saying changes have been made to the plan and it may become workable. For many Ukrainians, though, any agreement that means they're forced to give up parts of their country permanently to Russia is unthinkable. What did our soldiers die for, said this woman. That's why we cannot give up territory. There's unconfirmed reporting that the veto on NATO membership for Ukraine may have been removed from the peace plan, as well as the limit on Ukraine's military. But remember, those changes could mean that Vladimir Putin rejects it. A senior Ukrainian official says that President Zelensky may visit Washington later this week.
Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this panel show are those of the individual speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this channel, its affiliates, sponsors, or production team. This content is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised. We encourage respectful dialogue and critical thinking around the topics discussed.
Party. Why I like the new party? Number one, it's a group of people that's on a panel. We all have differences, but we all basically still come together at the end of the day. The new party for me is about unity. The new party for me is about educating people to the truth, letting people know what's been going on in our country. With that being said, shout out to the new party, man. We're going to keep it going with y'all.
Welcome to the new party.
I'm Enzo.
I'm Kamal.
I'm Kim.
I'm Doc. What's up?
So as y'all can see, it's the Ukraine peace deal. Enzo, what do you think about it?
I mean, I think at this point, Ukraine just needs to take the deal and be done with this. I don't understand why Ukraine has so much say in if they get their land back or not, because I've never heard any country that went to war with somebody that they get that land back that the other country took at the end of the war. So, I mean, I just think this is just absolutely crazy. It's either you agree to this now or fuck Russia. Let them just take it all at this point.
Kamal, I know you always say you about FBA business, but is this a good look for Trump?
I mean, now I want to talk about Zelensky. That motherfucking lying right now. He talking about everything good. Nah, bro. That shit bullshit, bro. He gonna have to go to Vladimir Putin and whoop his ass himself. Like, at this point, what I always say, I don't think they ever gonna come to a peace deal, to be honest. It's all bullshit. That's how I feel about it. Is it good? Is it a good look for Trump? I don't the hell know, but I know Zelensky looking like a poo butt right now, to be honest. That's what's happening in my eyes. That's all I gotta say about it. You feel me?
Well, it's funny you said that, you know, that they're just talking and that it's not real. So let's look at the timeline so we can see how they got to this point.
Ukraine declared independence from the Soviet Union. A few months later, the Soviet Union collapsed and Russia took its place. But Ukraine didn't just become independent, it also inherited the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world. In 1994, Ukraine decided to give up its nuclear weapons in exchange for a promise known as the Budapest Memorandum. And this agreement is going to play a crucial role in this story. As part of the agreement, Russia, the US and the UK promised not to use military force against Ukraine, except in self-defense. After independence, Ukraine was a little bit messy. It couldn't really decide which direction it wanted to take. Some wanted closer ties with Europe, others with Russia, and with every new election, the direction would change. In 2013, Ukraine's pro-Russian president, Viktor Yanukovych, was supposed to sign a major trade deal with the EU, but at the last minute, he backed out and sided with Russia instead. Ukrainians exploded in protests, first in Kiev and then across the country, which is now known as Euromaidan. It was the biggest pro-EU uprising in history, and it lasted for months. Many politicians had to resign, and in 2014, Yanukovych was ousted and fled to Russia, where he still resides. But just days later, Russian forces moved in and took a piece of Ukrainian territory called Crimea, which was a direct violation of the Budapest Memorandum. Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov claimed that, quote, Russia never violated Budapest Memorandum. It contained only one obligation, not to attack Ukraine with nukes. But that was a lie, because there are actually 6 obligations in the Budapest Memorandum, and the first one is, quote, to respect independence and the existing borders of Ukraine. Meanwhile, separatists in eastern Ukraine started fighting to break away. Russia was funding and supporting those separatists. In 2015, after a year of military clashes in eastern Ukraine, a ceasefire deal was signed called Minsk II Agreement. But the fighting never actually stopped. For the next 6 years, tensions kept rising. 14,000 people were killed in eastern Ukraine in total. And then, in 2021, Putin made his move. So many people don't know about it, but Putin actually published an essay called On the Historical Unity of Russians and Ukrainians. In it, he questioned the legitimacy of Ukrainian borders and claimed that Ukraine occupied historically Russian lands. And later, that essay was turned into a book, and according to some reports, it was made mandatory reading for Russian soldiers. In both 2021 and 2022, Russia said multiple times it wasn't planning to invade Ukraine. But by December 2021, over 100,000 Russian troops were stationed at Ukraine's borders. Russia demanded NATO to promise that Ukraine would never join NATO and a reduction in the number of troops stationed in Eastern Europe. Russia threatened with a military response if the demands were not met. NATO refused, saying that the decision was up to Ukraine and individual NATO members if they wanted Ukraine to be accepted. On February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But here is some important context. Ukraine was seeking NATO membership on and off since 2008, and it was never formally in the process of joining. NATO also never officially offered Ukraine to join, and in 2021, NATO did reaffirm that Ukraine, quote, will become a member, but it also didn't give any timeline. Same year, the US Secretary of State said that NATO's door was open, but there were no immediate membership talks. So in order for a country to be accepted into NATO, all member states need to agree. Before the invasion, France and Germany were hesitant about it, and it's very likely that Turkey would have objected and blocked Ukraine from joining.
So, Doc, a lot of talk about this is because Russia basically was upset that Ukraine was trying to get in NATO. How do you feel about NATO, or do you feel like this could have been prevented if Ukraine wasn't trying to be a part of NATO?
Nah. I don't think it would have been prevented if Ukraine wasn't trying to be a part of NATO. I think it was inevitable. Like they say. But my problem is with like Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. Like, Russia's a big country. I don't think you finna beat Russia. Bro, they ain't resorted to guerrilla warfare yet, terrorism, none of that. Like, say, bro, y'all blowing up apartment buildings. If I'm Zelensky, man, we going out here, we bombing museums, we bombing trains, we blowing up your granny house, all that, cuz y'all bombing apartment buildings, so it ain't like there's no rules to this shit. You feel me? So them boys ain't resorted to no guerrilla warfare yet. I'm talking about child care centers and smoke. You feel me? Like, you ain't gonna play with me like that. If I'm running the country, we smaller than you. We really ain't got the nuclear weapons to fight back to defend ourselves. We don't have the arsenal to defend ourselves. And you see the films of you blowing up apartment building, bro. You done took the rules out of the game. I'm fighting as dirty as I can, and that man ain't fought dirty yet. So he disappoint me. At least go fight dirty and lose. You feel me? Do something. You know what I'm saying? Kick him in the nuts. He ain't did nothing. You feel me? I'm disappointed.
And I feel you, bro. 1,000%, man. God damn.
So, Kimberly, this one for you since you're the communist on the panel. People are saying that Russia is doing this because they're running out of money.
Hello,
Yeah.
guys, and if you, just like me, were looking for an explanation of that hurry with which Ukraine was pressured to sign some agreement with Russia, that agreement literally appeared out of nowhere with no preliminary talks, then we may find that explanation in the recent Russia's financial reports that they were trying to hide, not just from the foreign observers, Ukrainians, but even from their own population. Because that fiscal reports actually expose whole branches of Russian industries destroyed by this exhausting war. And also the fact that with all Putin's desire to spend everything on war, they have no money left to pay these Russian war criminals, Russian war soldiers, because they have a 6 trillion hole in the budget. That is huge. And the solutions that the Russian finance minister offers is not a solution. They want to print more money and to impose more taxes. This will lead to more businesses destroyed inside Russia and a huge inflation. Exactly what happened before the collapse of the USSR. So the collapse of the Russian Federation is coming. Subscribe to witness that together and share.
My bad, I'm muted. Basically, the Russian economy basically became an entire war economy, and now it seems like it's affecting their economy. So how do you feel like this is why they came to the peace treaty? And do you feel like them changing their whole economy and the government being able to control that is a weakness?
No, I don't necessarily think it's a weakness. I do want to defend myself. I'm not communist. I have communist friends, but I'm not communist myself. I think that communism stifles individuality. It's inherently also atheist. I'm Christian. Not that I believe in a Christian state, but I think they've been talking about a peace deal for a long time. I heard that it's not much different what is on the table now than what was offered 2 months into the conflict in 2022 after Boris Johnson went and begged Zelensky not to sign that agreement when it first came about in 2022. The video before this lady, I think she has a Ukrainian accent. I just want to say I'm sympathetic to anybody who lives in a country that is in a war and has a certain opinion about what is best for their own country. I do want to say the video before that, where the guy explained the conflict, was completely one-sided. It doesn't take into account that the Maidan coup in 2014 was actually funded by a lot of CIA operatives, and also doesn't take into account the leaked audio of Victoria Nuland admitting that the United States government was completely involved in the coup and they wanted to put their own leader in there. And I think that leader, can't pronounce his name, was there from 2014 to 2016. Also, I'm not communist, but if I was, then NATO should have been disbanded after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. Everyone should have claimed victory. Hooray, we defeated communism and disbanded NATO. But the function of NATO is not to combat communism, which is what it was founded on. The NATO is just an extension of the US military-industrial complex. Back to your question about whether or not it was an economic decision from Russia, it might well have been. They haven't been completely hurt economically. They've found ways to work around the sanctions that have been imposed on that country, and they haven't really, at least not so far as like crippling their entire economy. They've found ways to get around that as well. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So this is what a Republican congressman had to say about how Trump is handling the whole Ukraine situation.
Are you confident that the president ultimately lands on Ukraine's side here? Because I noted over the weekend that the president was back to using some of the language he used in that notorious Oval Office meeting with Zelensky back in February, saying that Ukraine showing no gratitude for U.S. help. Again, talking about, Ukraine having no cards in this. I just wonder where you think the president's going to land.
So the president's comments on Ukraine have been reprehensible. I know for a fact that Zelensky has said many times that he's been grateful. The people of Ukraine are grateful for our help. But he tends to blame Ukraine for Russia's invasion. I don't get it. And so I do not have confidence. The president has periodically said the right things, but more often than not seems to waver back into the Russian camp, the invader camp. That's why I think the House and the Senate need to take the lead here.
Skeptic, is Trump the right person to handle this because he's been accused of being on Russia's side multiple times during this process? Can you hear us?
You muted.
Oh yeah. What was I gonna say? Sorry, I was not listening. I've got like two things going on. What's for that? What was the question? Can you repeat that?
So basically, Trump is the one handling the Ukraine situation. So the Republican congressman was like, he feels like Trump's comments on Ukraine have been reprehensible, and that basically he feels like Trump is one-sided with trying to get what Russia wants and not what Ukraine wants.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that. I also think that we put so much emphasis on Ukraine agreeing or signing the peace treaty, but Ukraine is literally being attacked while the peace treaty is being negotiated. So, and from what I've understood, and this is just from like, I'm not saying I'm an expert on this, but just from what I have looked into, it seems like Ukraine is having to give up and kind of come and negotiate a lot on their end. So they're having to compromise on a lot of the things that they wanted to hold strong on, right? A lot of the points where I think land was a big thing. They're having to compromise on those things. And I haven't heard from Russia. I don't know who has, but it's been multiple times where we have heard Ukraine say, we're going to agree to a ceasefire. We're going to agree to whatever it is. And I don't hear from Russia. It seems like Russia is not really in on these conversations. And it seems like we get our hopes up, and then for what? Because Russia continues to attack. They literally attacked while they were negotiating, and they unalived a lot of people in Ukraine. So I do agree with that to a certain extent. I think it's a great thing that we're even trying to come up with a peace deal. Like, I understand with the conservatives, to a certain point, I get that we're very critical of things, but it's skepticism coming from a reason, because they've done this before, and then here we are again. Like, it's kind of been a repetitive thing.
Skeptic, right. If I get into a fight with somebody and I'm whooping their ass, they don't get to decide when the fight over.
Right.
You feel me? If I'm whooping your ass, but that's what I'm saying. If I whoop your ass, you don't get to say stop, and then we negotiate to stop because I'm whooping your ass.
But Russia agreed that they weren't going to invade Ukraine, correct? Is that true or not?
And then you was talking shit.
Yeah, Kamala's phone.
Right. So they did. So they did agree, and then they went back on their word, correct? So who is in the wrong here? What nation should everyone be uniting and saying, hey, you are in the wrong, you're invading a sovereign nation? Or are we okay? Because supposedly we're being invaded by people here in America, right? And that's not okay. They're wrong for invading our nation. But all of a sudden we're okay with Ukraine invading, with Russia invading Ukraine. Like, we got to,
but that's not an ally though. That's not an ally. Like if somebody else getting their ass whooped.
No.
Who's not an ally?
They're not an ally to us.
Ukraine. I wouldn't say
Ukraine
they're an ally.
is an ally to us.
How? What agreements do we have with them for us to be an ally with them?
We are trying to help them now.
I'm saying before this war started,
Russia
what agreements did we have?
To us, correct? Is Russia an ally to us?
Yeah, so we letting them.
No, they're an adversary.
I'll play a clip since that's the question. This is actually a clip of Joe Biden. So y'all listen to this.
Well, I am not the pen pal, but the phone pal of Poroshenko and Arseniy Yatsenyuk and now the speaker. I literally, without exaggeration, the last 4 years, I'm on the phone 2 to 3 hours a week with those folks. There's an overwhelming instinct in Europe to say, hey, before you guys became president, this was owned by Russia anyway. They had a puppet there. What difference does it make? What the hell's the difference? Why are you making us engage in these sanctions? You remember last year I was authorized to say we do the second tranche of $1 billion, and he didn't fire his chief prosecutor. And because I have the confidence of the president, I was there and I said, I'm not signing it. Until you fire him, we're not signing, man. Get it straight. We're not doing it. Till you form a new government and you actually bring in someone who will move on this, we're not playing. Not because we're trying to play hardball, because we know if they give an excuse to the EU, there are at least 5 countries right now that want to say, whoa, we want out. At least 5 right now. And so what we put together, we're putting together now, is a basic detailed roadmap of who goes first and who goes second. And there's 2 pieces of this, folks. One is the security guarantees that are to flow from Russia. And 2, the political steps that Ukraine has to take. And some of the steps are very difficult to take. They've already done the energy piece, they've done some other things, but my point is that when you say the Donbass is going to have a special status and you're going to amend your constitution, it's like saying, okay, you know, Texas and Wyoming, Texas is going to have a special status that we don't want because we want Mexico to have more influence in Texas. And we're going to pass that through the United States Congress. So there's some really tough stuff they've got to do. They're willing, I'm convinced they will do it.
So basically, they've been working with Ukraine for a while because that's what Joe Biden was accused of before, was him and Hunter Biden having back dealings with Ukraine. And Bill Clinton worked with them before that.
Yeah, and I want to say during the Orange Revolution, whenever Ukraine was fighting for their independence from whom? Russia, right? The United States was basically, they were being said that the United States was pushing forward democracy and who should be in power because they wanted to directly benefit from having Ukraine be independent. So Ukraine has been an ally, whether you guys know it or not, but
it's not
we
an
have
ally
never
on
been.
paper.
We
And
have,
then after the Orange Revolution in '94, the Budapest Memorandum,
relations.
that memorandum was
Hold on,
violated
hold on.
multiple
So
times.
we have a strong relationship with Ukraine, which constitutes them as an ally of the United States. We're not allies with Russia. I don't know when MAGA decided
Never
to be
saying we
allies
are.
with Russia, but we've never
I said,
been
hold on.
allies
I
with
made it
Russia.
clear. I made it clear that we shouldn't be helping either. Straight up.
Either. I agree with either.
I
But
could care less about fucking both of them.
What does Ukraine do for America that Russia doesn't do?
Let me ask a question. Whose administration is coming up and saying they want a peace, whatever peace treaty?
Do we want people
prize.
to stop dying?
They want a peace prize or whatever for being like the peace president. He's the one pushing forward this peace deal. He's the one that inserted himself or supposedly came out.
He should get credit if he negotiates a peace deal.
He was going to end this conflict in 24 hours. We're still here with the conflict.
So what? This is a conflict that started under Joe Biden.
So
this conflict should have never started. We should hold on, skeptic.
Actually, since Barack Obama.
Yeah, technically, right? Yeah, but it reignited. It reignited. We shouldn't be involved. There's no obligational ties to Ukraine. After '94, when we signed the Budapest Memorandum, that was violated when we said under Secretary Baker, NATO will not encroach anywhere closer to Russia. And what did we do? We brought
the words were not 1 inch. Not 1 inch.
Russia,
we brought in more countries. Hold on. We brought in more countries to NATO. We broke that agreement. We broke that agreement again with meddling in their elections. And Russia also broke that agreement by annexing Crimea. Both sides said nobody will invade Russia, including Russia. Or if they do, we will come to their aid, as in America and Russia and Britain. That agreement was broken. We do not have any obligational ties to back up Ukraine against Russia to begin with. This is a war that should have never started, that we should have never funded, that we sent $300 billion of taxpayer dollars to them that we're never going to get back. I agreed with Trump when he renegotiated everything and said, okay, EU, you want to fund them? Okay, cool. You're going to buy from us and then you're going to send it to him. We're not going to send them anything.
I understand what you're saying, but that's not an argument that's being had. Trump is not saying he's going to pull out and not be part of the agreement. He's saying he's going to bring peace. So like, who are you arguing with? Because this man literally
There's
said
no
when
agreement.
he was running, he said he was going to end this conflict in 24 hours. And now
And
here we are again
Okay.
with a
is the
Republican,
so
Hold
but
on,
I
hold
just
on,
have
hold
one
on,
question.
Doc,
I have
governor
one
hold on,
who's
hold
question.
on.
saying,
Y'all
or a
going on.
Republican politician who's saying they're going to strike a peace deal.
All right, because Enzo brought up Crimea, so I want to play a throwback clip. I will get Kamal and Kimberly in here. This is what Zelensky said as a comedian, and you got to read subtitles, when he was a comedian about Crimea.
И обещаю, в следующем году мы вернем Крым. Я, конечно, слабо в это верю. Ну, как президент, я обязан вселять в вас доверие, веру в завтрашний день, бла-бла-бла и всякую.
Kamal, you brought up Zelensky. He basically was making a joke saying that we're not going to get Crimea. He said that as a comedian. So how do you feel with him not getting it now he's president?
Man, how I feel is he must be on that Russian vodka. That nigga was drunk. God damn. Boy, it was toasted mini wheat. God damn. I'm actually reading the chat. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I don't know if y'all been reading it. Enzo, you a colored man today. I'm going to a color.
What?
4 colored gentlemen up there with glasses.
Yo, they
I'm telling you, y'all need to read the chat. I know we talk about Ukraine and
I got
Russia.
it up on big. I didn't see the chat.
But the real war zone is in this chat because a lot of you niggas is idiots in there. God damn.
Oh, let me take a look.
Mama, where's this idiot got a band-aid? Because your mama give rough head. Shut the fuck up. All right. Now, Zelensky, bro, he gonna have to slap the fuck out of Vladimir Putin. That's the only way this gonna end. Any other way, it ain't gonna happen. I'm telling you right now, Vladimir Putin, I agree with Skepta. I don't think he even in the meetings. He ain't listening to none of that shit that they saying. I'm like, yeah, you don't have to throw hands, bro. Drink on that Russian vodka, get your hand game up, and fight for your country. That's how I see it. You feel me? And the rest of y'all in the chat, y'all keep saying shit, man. I'm gonna start clowning y'all asses. We're gonna get off a topic. I'm telling you right now. But congratulations, Enzo. You're a color man today, I guess. Shit.
On Laura Ingram's show, basically they were saying that Trump already knew that they were never gonna get Crimea. So here's the clip.
Was the only realist who was willing to say what needed to be said, that this war was a mistake, wouldn't have happened under his watch, and that it had to end. Because as long as China is going to fund this by buying ag and oil from Russia, I don't see how this is going to stop.
Yeah, he was the only one, Laura, that also talked about the human cost. Almost every week he said this was a human tragedy, that all these people were being killed for no reason. And I think everybody knew what the parameters of a peace deal were, that Ukraine was never going to be in NATO, and they didn't have the military wherewithal to get back the Crimea and all of the Donbass. So the only questions were, where would the DMZ be, the demilitarized zone, and what kind of security guarantees would it have? And Europe is now much stronger because of the new NATO that Trump forced them to really to recalibrate. Almost all of them, except 4 or 5, make their 2% contributions of GDP. They've got Finland, Sweden, and they can give them a guarantee. We can offer some logistical support. But otherwise, Ukraine is running out of people, and Russia is running out of money. And so there is going to be a settlement. And the only question now is, how far west does Putin think he has to go before he goes back to the Kremlin and say, I lost 1.5 million dead Russians, wounded, missing, and this is what I got, and it's not very much. So I think that they're just going to squabble about where the ceasefire line is. But I think this time Trump's going to get a peace deal, and he's the only person who's talked about this war in humanitarian terms.
Hey, drop 17p. You bet not be in the USA saying that bullshit.
Hey, Kimberly, basically on that, you heard what he said. So do you feel like forever wars are going to be stopped in the U.S.? You froze? Is she froze?
Yeah, she froze.
Yeah, she's frozen.
I think she's
frozen. She just came back. My bad.
I'm gonna go on my phone really quick.
All right.
Because this computer's like not liking me. 1 second.
All right. So I'm going to pull her off.
Yeah, her computer started messing up since you called her a communist, bro.
So
Who called her a communist?
we go switch it up because we're all on social media. This was a big
Same
thing.
sentiment I was about to express. Like with Trump trying to broker peace, like it's gonna cost Ukraine something. Just how
Look,
much? I think how much is just like it's gonna be like what they have to figure out. How much are you willing to part with? It's gonna cost you something if you don't think you can win.
I just don't. I don't think that Russia just wants something. I think Russia wants Ukraine back. That's all I'm saying. Like, I just don't. I feel like, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, the fact that America had so much to do with Ukraine's independence because it benefited us, and now we're like, you know what? You're on your. I mean, like, we have spent, like you just said, and so we spent so much money helping them out during this conflict, and it's like we had a lot to do with the history of their independence, and now to just kind of leave them high and dry is actually very American, let me just say. But
here's the thing with it.
Like, it's crazy.
Here's the thing with it. Putin's justification for taking Ukraine back is all down to historical, because they say it's not really well documented that the true origin of Ukraine is Kyiv. So he's trying to bring not just back the Soviet Union itself, but more or less the main part of Russia itself. At the end of the day, he's never going to stop. As long as he's in power, he's never going to stop trying to take back Ukraine. That's my whole thing with it. I don't really care. I don't want my taxpayer dollars going there to help it. I didn't want my taxpayer dollar going there under Biden. I could care less when Putin's still going to do whatever. We know both of them have broke peace agreements over the last couple of years, or over the last year. Both sides have. They signed a peace agreement for what, like 12 hours, and then Russia starts firing in fucking missiles. The same thing with Ukraine. They started the kamikaze drones when they took out they called it the Russian Pearl Harbor, when they took out their bombers. Both of them are guilty of it. At this point, I don't really care if they get a peace agreement or if they do, because one way or the other, Russia is sandbagging at most, because they're not even putting their best troops forward. If they wanted Ukraine, they would have took Ukraine in 2 weeks, 100%. They would have did it if they put their best troops on the front line, but they haven't. They're sandbagging. They're wearing them down the same way that they did to the Germans in the 40s. That's what they do. That's how they fight. So it's going to take forever until Ukraine gives up themselves.
But theoretically, taking what you just said, right, and using that logic, America has always been seen as the world police, or as like, okay, if you do something that's even the UN really doesn't hold as much power as America does, for example. Some people have said, if this is a symbolic thing that's going on, because like, let's say, for example, that yes, Russia could have taken back Ukraine, but they haven't, because they understand all the allyship and they understand how big of a deal it's become for other foreign countries. What would stop other nations from just saying, hey, you left us, we're just going to come back and take that land too, like Taiwan and China and other nations?
So I'm going to switch gears.
The Jews took back Israel.
Hold on, I'm going to switch gears, guys. Basically, on social media, on X, Elon Musk just did a location on X. And so what is shocking is that you talked about this, a lot of these people who are white supremacists are actually brown people, but I'll let the video explain.
In America, what's happening on X right now should deeply concern you. And I'm not only talking about how the Homeland Security account briefly showed that it was created and based in... Yeah. You see, over the past few days, X has been rolling out a new account location feature to help viewers make more informed decisions about the content that account was posting. But the shocking part is, dozens of accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers posting about American politics don't seem to be based in America. Check this out. MAGA Scope, based in Nigeria. America First, Bangladesh. Eric Trump News, Eastern Europe. Baron Trump News, also Eastern Europe. Conscious philosopher who frequently posts about American politics, including that in the American Civil War, Confederates were the good guys. Well, their account is based in Serbia. And I mean, it's not just American politics. There are so many accounts that are not located in the country that you would assume based on the nature of their content. In fact, one of the most viral posts is about the DHS account being based in Tel Aviv. Now, some people initially disputed this as fake. However, there's been multiple screen recordings from different accounts. In fact, Homeland Security even reacted to this with a picture of Trump looking shocked. Now, Grok called it some sort of technical glitch, and it has since been fixed to show that the account is based in the United States. Now, X does note as a disclaimer that the location might not be accurate, and a good example of that is a Gaza-based journalist was called out for his location being in Poland, which he responded to by literally posting a video of him in Gaza. So clearly the feature is not always to be trusted, but it does raise a pretty serious question. How much of America's and other countries' extreme political opinions online actually come from people in that country?
So Kimberly, Elon Musk has already turned that feature off. How do you feel there was a lot of foreign countries kind of interfering in American politics by pushing propaganda out there?
I haven't heard this one. I think that's pretty interesting. I'm gonna look more into it. He put the feature on and then he took it off.
Yeah.
And then the first one, because I couldn't see, that was Homeland Security, or what was the first account that he showed?
So basically, it was a lot of white supremacist accounts, but mostly right wing, based in like Nigeria, Australia, Serbia. The Homeland Security was just another account, but it was a lot of accounts pushing propaganda.
And that's based on like the geolocation on the VPN?
So, yeah, so Elon Musk did a feature where you can see exactly where the person's located on that profile.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I do think a lot of, especially like, there is probably a lot of influence from different parts of the world because there's a lot of interest in American politics, right? I would need to look more into that story to get more of an idea. Like, do we know like the percentages of like people coming out, or was it just around a few, or was it like a lot?
Kamal, you was shaking your head. You knew about this story. You want to like give him some feedback?
Yeah, I knew about this. Stoney and Dusty, the name says it yourself. Shut your dumb ass up. We know about VPNs, motherfucker. We know about the shit. That's why Elon turned it off. I'm like, I was just like, some of the shit that was popping up. They were talking about like some of the porn actresses and some of the porn sites was all coming from like either India or goddamn Africa and stuff like that. Like, you feel me? So at the end of the day, yeah, the VPNs might have thrown stuff off, but it was kind of funny to see that most of the accounts that was on the bullshit came from either India or in Africa somewhere. That shit was wild. So yeah, I knew about this story. I knew a lot of glitches was happening because certain people in accounts that was in the United States, they end up being somewhere in fucking Nigeria or something like that. So you feel me? But can I read y'all this one comment, please? Because this shit is hilarious. Where is, and I'm sad her name is Johnson because my last name is Johnson too. Damn, you putting shame to our name. She said, "What am I watching? Interracial adult entertainment? This country is cooked." I guess the holidays is coming for real. Motherfuckers already drunk before Thanksgiving. God damn. What is she talking?